parliament torched, over 70 dead, a prime minister forced to resign. But how did it come to this? Early September 2025, Nepal's government bans 26 social media platforms. The official reasons? Platforms failed to register with local authorities, concerns over misinformation, and censorship of governmental criticism from the public. Sounds bureaucratic, right? Almost makes you wonder, why did the ban hit so deeply and so quickly? Because it landed on a country where decades of churn, corruption, and youth joblessness had already primed people to explode. Nepal's population is very young, with the median age being between 25 to 28 at the time of speaking. These aren't just apps to them. They're their economy, their voice, and their connection to the world. A social media ban in 2025 isn't a trivial matter. For a digitally native generation, it's like pulling the plug on their bank, their classroom, and their newsroom, all at the same time. These platforms are where they find work, learn skills, organise services, and broadcast injustice. Removing that channel isn't just censorship, it's cutting a lifeline. Within hours, the hashtag Open Internet was everywhere, and the government had lost control of the situation. But this wasn't really about social media. This was about a generation that had watched the leaders get rich while they stayed poor. The ban turned a simmering grievance into a clear focal point. If you take away our voice, we'll take away your power. It's the equivalent of trying to quiet employees by locking the suggestion box, and then wondering why they stopped showing up to work. However, to understand exactly why this happened, you first need to know about Nepal's complicated history. The country's leadership has been failing for decades. Since the abolishment of their monarchy in 2008, Nepal has had 14 different governments. That churn matters. When leadership changes so frequently, policy becomes a rumour mill. Promises go unkept, and institutions never truly stabilise. That instability compounds grievances. Infrastructure projects stall, jobs vanish, and the social compact frays. Where getting rid of a monarch was supposed to bring democracy and prosperity to the people, all that happened was corruption scandals from those being elected into power, scams, frauds, and politicians and their families flaunting their wealth on social media. This, in the face of youth unemployment in Nepal hitting over 20% as of last year, according to World Bank model estimates. So 1 in every 5 youths in Nepal will be without an income, just to put things into perspective. When leaders behave like spoiled brats, flashing luxury whilst public services rot, the narrative becomes simple. They are for themselves, not for us. Trust drains away a drip at a time until the cup is bone dry. By 2025, the average Nepali under 30 had lived through some 14 governments, around 1 for every 2 years they'd been alive. They'd heard every promise, they'd seen every betrayal. Imagine a startup where every quarter a new CEO arrives with a new mission. No one believes long-term plans anymore. People stop investing emotionally or financially. They just wait for the next collapse. So what happened directly after the social media ban? The public closely followed it with loud, angry consequence. Street protests began. The police opened fire on protesters. The response? Parliament buildings were ignited. Escalation followed a predictable arc. A policy offended identity, heavy-handed enforcements escalated fear, and symbolic targets, the parliament, the seats of power of the country, became focal points. When the first lives were lost, rank and file sympathy flipped hard towards the protesters, and sympathy is what turns marches into movements. This was not just anger, this was strategic. Gen Z used encrypted messaging apps such as Discord, Telegram, and Signal that the government couldn't monitor, and coordinated across multiple cities simultaneously. They had one demand. PM KP Sharma Oli must resign, and resign he did. The social media ban was lifted within hours. For the first time in Nepal's history, they appointed a woman as the interim prime minister, a few weeks. That's how long it took digital natives to topple a government that had survived wars, coups, and earthquakes. Speed matters. In the digital era, movements are a series of cascading micro-events, retweets, streams, viral clips that together form a tsunami. The state's reaction rate could not keep up. It's like a server flood. Too many requests, too fast, and the system fails. But this time, the server isn't just an online thing, it's the Nepalese government. If Nepal fell this fast, how many other governments are facing the same kind of risk right now? More than you might think. To different triggers, but arguably the same underlying logic. For Nepal isn't alone in mismanaging its population. Right now, as I record this, 3 other governments are facing similar issues due to poor leadership. On September the 18th, 2025, in France, 800,000 people went on strike against President Macron's €44 billion austerity package. 8 major unions shut down transport, schools and hospitals. And the message? Fix the economy, do not break our backs. Strikes in France show a different trigger but the same logic. When policy hits people's wallets or dignity, institutional actors, unions, organise rapid, effective disruption. In established democracies, that disruption is routinized, but it still stops economies in their tracks and forces political change. Then there's Slovakia. On September the 17th of 2025, thousands protested in 16 major cities and towns across Prime Minister Robert Fico's austerity measures and his cosy relationship with Vladimir Putin. When people think you're selling out both their economy and their values, they take to the streets. Slovakia demonstrates how economic pain coupled with perceived identity betrayal, foreign policy sellouts, is a volatile mix. It's not just money, it's moral breach. And then there's the UK. On September the 13th, 2025, well over 110,000 people converged in London for the Unite the Kingdom March. What began as a rally framed around free speech and anti-immigration anger quickly became a referendum on a government seen as losing control of borders, of public services, and of social cohesion itself. When a state fails to reassure its citizens or manage crisis, then punishes those that criticise their rule, the vacuum filled with rage and opportunists. The march wasn't just nationalism on parade, it was a symbol of a deeper collapse in trust between the governed and those meant to govern. 4 countries, 4 different triggers, 1 identical pattern. Leaders made decisions without listening to the people affected most. And when people feel they aren't being listened to, what do? They lose faith in those governing them, and they no longer see them as valid leaders. Here's the paradox that weakened all 4 of these governments. The more they tried to dominate the situation, the less power over it they actually had. Control tactics, bans, forces, unilateral cuts, scapegoating, create what social scientists call negative feedback loops. Instead of dampening unrest, these moves amplify signals that rally more people. Every attempt to silence dissidents becomes a megaphone. Every austerity measure that's defended as a necessary evil becomes proof that elites are insulated from pain. Nepal banned social media to stop that dissent, but created a bigger movement in the process. France imposed austerity to fix silences and paralysed the economy with strikes. Slovakia's pro-Russia stance to appease one base alienated the majority. The UK's attack on free speech and stance on immigration angered the nation. This is what researchers call legitimacy collapse. According to Max Weber's framework, authority dies when people stop believing you have the right to lead them. And in 2025, that collapse happens at digital speed. Social media didn't create these problems, it made them impossible to hide, impossible to ignore, and impossible to control. Leaders who treat legitimacy like an entitlement are the ones who will be surprised when it's revoked. Legitimacy is not a title, it's a subscription people renew daily. Stop offering value and people stop following you. So what should leaders actually do when legitimacy starts leaking? They must change how they communicate, how they build trust, and how they address structural problems, starting immediately. If you manage people, whether it's 5 employees or 5 million citizens, Nepal just gave you the most expensive leadership course in history. Lesson 1. Communicate early, honestly, and often. Silence breeds suspicion. Whether it's a company pivot or a national policy change, clear and transparent communication reduces uncertainty and prevents misinformation from filling the void. Nepal's government could have held consultations. Instead, they issued orders. Listening is not softness, it's risk management. Get information early and you can patch the leak before it becomes a flood. Lesson 2. Trust is your greatest currency. Every corruption scandal, every backroom deal, every wealth taunt on socials eroded trust. People will tolerate mistakes, but not betrayal. If your team, your citizens, or your customers believe you're acting in bad faith or hiding the truth, the trust evaporates. And without that trust, compliance turns into resistance, which eventually leads to the entire organisation imploding. Lesson 3. Address root causes, not just the symptoms. Quick fixes may calm things temporarily, but unresolved root issues, such as low wages, poor conditions and inequity, will resurface as larger problems later. Leadership means doing the hard work of systemic change, despite the initial discomfort of putting this into place. Lesson 4. Your authority isn't automatic. It's earned daily. The moment your people think you're serving yourself instead of them, you're already losing. If power is a currency, legitimacy is the interest that you pay on it. Fail to make those payments and creditors will call in the loan. By assuming that the people of Nepal would always fall in line, then ordering something as major as a social media ban, the Nepalese government made a fatal error, and it cost them their authority as their rule collapsed. Lesson 5. Model accountability at the top. If leaders don't own their mistakes, neither will the people beneath them. Nepal's previous government had scant levels of accountability as far as Gen Z was concerned, basically taunting them with posts online and a flagrant disregard for the youth of the country. Visible accountability would have set the tone, preserved credibility, and may have prevented the anger from becoming a full-blown rebellion. Can governments recover once legitimacy is badly damaged? And what does that recovery look like? The answer is not fully, but they can come back to some extent by rapidly restoring accountability, reforming institutions and rebuilding trust. Although in some cases, once the trust is gone, it's not coming back. In today's connected world, bad leadership doesn't just fail slowly, it fails spectacularly, publicly and permanently. Nepal's interim Prime Minister, Sushila Karki, has 6 months to prepare for elections. France's strikes could topple Macron's government. Slovakia's protests are growing. The UK wants their Prime Minister gone. All of these are live test cases. Some governments will make tactical retreats and regain equilibrium. Others will double down and risk deeper collapse. The age of digital accountability has arrived. Your people, whether they're citizens, employees, or customers, have more power than ever to expose, organise, and replace you. The question isn't whether this will happen in your organisation. The question is whether you'll learn from Nepal's mistakes or repeat them. So, could one policy really topple a government this fast? Yes. Yes, when that policy lands on a population primed by years of broken promises, economic pain, and digital organisation, a single spark can trigger a collapse. The Nepal case study shows exactly how a visible ban, violent enforcement, rapid viral mobilisation, and a loss of legitimacy, all within days. The lesson for leaders now is clear. Never underestimate how quickly legitimacy can evaporate, and do your best to be an excellent leader, no matter how difficult it may seem. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps others find our content and helps us grow and expand the channel. Turn on notifications so you're the first to know when our next documentary drops. We cover anything that reshapes wealth and influence, whether it's a single person or an entire continent. If you want more, click one of the videos on screen now. I'll see you in the next deep dive.